Before we get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the content that is released by GoCollect. And if you're interested, head over to Regie Collects here on YouTube. Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector and the host of the GoCollect speculation video, and I want to welcome you to another episode. In this episode, like every other episode here on GoCollect, I'm going to spend some time talking about a few blog posts. And I'm only going to touch on the high points of these blog posts for the sake of brevity. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about this first blog post. And I will tell you that this is a good one, and it's a good one because it is related to Mikey Sutton. For those that don't know, Mikey Sutton is a guy that breaks a lot of scoops related to the movies and the TV shows and the streaming services, and he's been doing it on a regular and consistent basis. And I've actually gotten to know Mikey just a little bit because he actually subscribes to my channel, and I've had a lot of offline conversations with him. But this first blog post actually talks about one of his scoops related to who will be the next big bad in the MCU. And the blogger does a really good job of painting the picture here of how the next big bad is expected to be Galactus. And the rumor is that they are going to build Galactus up over the course of several movies, the same way that they did for Thanos. And everything for Galactus is going to culminate in the Fantastic Four #3. Considering they have not made the first movie, this one is a little ways off, but again, Mikey doesn't get it wrong. And so if you believe in Mikey, if you believe in Galactus and all the rumors that surround him, you may want to check out this blog post. You might also want to check out what it is that the blogger is saying about the various characters as well as the books that will be affected. Galactus is going to be in it, Silver Surfer as the Herald, and possibly even Frankie Ray, aka Nova. So you might want to check this one out because there could be some awesome stuff that happens down the line with all three of these characters. This next blog post is an interesting one because it actually touches on a controversial topic. And that topic is when there is an appearance of a character that actually predates the character's first appearance. And the one that readily comes to mind is where Spawn actually appeared in Malibu Sun before he appeared in Spawn issue #1. And another example that readily comes to mind are some of the magazines and the journals that came out with images of Spider-Man's black costume before he actually appeared in any one of the comics that is the first appearance of Spider-Man in the black costume. And I'm not going to go into detail because everyone has an opinion on that one. But this blogger actually touches on a character that is incredibly popular, that being Harley Quinn. And he highlights a couple of books where Harley had some appearances that actually predate her appearance in Batman Adventures issue #12. And I'm gonna be honest, I actually didn't know about these books, and you might not either, which is why we are going to talk about them. Before Harley Quinn appeared in Batman Adventures #12, she was actually in a magazine article. And this was Comic Scene #31 that was published in February of 1993. And this was an article that was about the Batman animated TV show. And this appearance actually predates Batman Adventures issue #12 by nearly 7 months. What's great is that someone can actually pick up raw copies of this magazine for around $50 to $70 on eBay, which isn't that bad. And considering especially that there are 6 copies on the CGC census in total, with 2 of those being 9.8s and 2 of those being 9.6. And so if you can't afford or don't want to buy Batman Adventures issue number 12, this could be an alternative for you. The blogger also goes on to talk about another appearance that might be of interest to you as well. And so I definitely want to encourage you to check out this blog post. If you are a fan of Harley Quinn, this could be one that you want to look at. Our next blogger is really excited about James Gunn. And specifically, the blogger is excited about the magic that James Gunn could make with King Shark. And the blogger is making a pretty awesome comparison here and asking a question as to whether King Shark could be the DC version of Groot. And I'll be honest, James Gunn is a fantastic director, and I am excited to see what he does with Suicide Squad number 2 as well. The blogger highlights a couple of books that you may want to check out. The very first book that they talk about is Superboy number 9, and this is the first full appearance of King Shark. And the blogger highlights here that this book is edging closer to actually doubling in value. And in the month of August, issues of the 9.8 have not sold for less than $117, but actually had a high of about $160. And the blogger goes on to talk about if you don't want to spend that kind of money, you might actually be able to save yourself a few bucks by picking up King Shark's cameo appearance, that being Superboy number 0. And I can tell you neither one of these books is terribly expensive. And again, there may be some magic here that gets made because James Gunn is a fantastic character. And if you saw the trailer for Suicide Squad, you can't help but be excited about this movie. The link to this blog post down in the description. This next blog post is a solid one because it talks about a very popular character, at least a currently popular character, that being Punchline. And this was a character that was introduced a few months ago, and people were really, really excited about this character. And then folks started to ask some questions as to whether this character was going to be one that was going to be introduced and then quickly killed off and never heard from again. And so people wanted to know whether there was some longevity in this character and whether it was worth it to spend the money, especially when certain books associated with this character started to kind of take off and go up in value. And I think what we're starting to see is that Punchline is here to stay. And what we're seeing is DC kind of leaking out, if you will, little bits of information about the character where the character had a cameo and then a full appearance, and then we get the origin months later. And so the blogger is basically making an argument here that if you do indeed believe that Punchline is here to stay, you can't just get one book. You technically have to get all of the books, or at least a healthy number of the books, to make sure that you cover your bases. And there are some pros and cons to each one of these books. So I definitely want to encourage you to check out the blog post. That way you can read some of the nuances that the blogger talks about. But the first book that they mention that you may want to check out is Batman issue number 89. And this is actually the first cameo appearance of Punchline. The next book that you may want to look at is Hell Risen issue number 3. And there's a little bit of question as to whether this is the first full or second cameo appearance, but it is a book that you definitely want to check out, as is the next book that is on the list, which is Batman number 92, which is considered to be the first full appearance and also the first cover. Now, the tricky thing about this book is that everyone knew that this book was coming, and so the retailers order a lot of copies, and so that is one of the drawbacks with this particular book. But for that reason, the blogger actually goes on to talk about a couple of variants that you may want to check out that give you some of the appeal, but in much smaller numbers than essentially the A cover of this book. Again, if you think that there's some magic to be made here, you want to check out this blog post, you want to read all of the details, and then you want to decide which books you go after. So DC Fandom was a couple of weeks ago, but one of our bloggers is still very much excited about this major event that DC actually sponsored. And they are specifically excited about 3 characters that are going to be appearing in the upcoming season of the Titans TV show. And while we don't know whether the small screen has as much of a dramatic impact on the values associated with comics versus the big screen, there could be some momentum here that is actually seen. And here's the thing, you might also just be curious to see how these characters actually show up. And if you are interested, again, the blog post is linked down in the description. But the 3 characters that we are talking about, first is the Red Hood, who made his first appearance in Detective Comics 525. Next up is Barbara Gordon, or should I say Commissioner Barbara Gordon, who first appears in Detective Comics 359. And lastly, Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow. And again, we don't know whether the values of these books are going to go up, but it is going to be awesome to see these characters come to life even on a small screen. So the blog post is down in the description. Check it out, give it a read, and decide for yourself if these are books that you actually want to pick up. So there you have it. We have reached the end of another episode, and as I promised, there was a little something for everybody in this episode. And if you did indeed enjoy this, I want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment behind. And I want to definitely encourage you to come back next Wednesday when we get to do this all over again.